the hell this happened, since it only took Joo-hyuk 23 minutes to win, and 20 of the minutes was him traveling. And now it's a problem as it ruins the schedule. Sang-il says from what he remembers in the rules, they are allowed to begin the next game on the same day if there's enough days, and that he would like to discuss progressing with the next game with the other teachers. Chief Lee says alright, just let him know the result. Sang-il wonders if this is why Joo-hyuk asked him about this the other night. It cuts to him and Jack walking. Jack says the heroes don't care about proceeding, but they still need to talk to the White Lotus. Jack says he was convinced from the team battle that the final result won't change even if they delay it, and that he now knows why he called Joo-hyuk a monster. Sang-il says he understands, and that they can go talk to White Lotus. It jumps to the Valhalla waiting room, and everyone is sitting there. Soyeon stares at Joo-hyuk saying that he's insane for soloing the battle, and she wanted to take some initiative, but she couldn't do anything in the end. She also brings up how she lost to Arin. Then she wonders if it's because of her lessons with Joo-hyuk that she won. She starts to feel like she's being left behind, and she wonders if she gave up her ego, if he would teach her. They start to get told over the speakers that tomorrow's game will be held today instead. So to prepare and get ready for the last game, Joo-hyuk calls out to everyone, saying he has something to say in advance. He says that he will go to the Eye of the Forest himself. Everyone will be on their own, but if they need help to yell for him. Soyeon starts to think about how they already won the last two games, so they'll have to get the lowest score in order to lose, and how the Eye of the Forest is mostly about the environment, so they don't need to worry about the monsters. Joo-hyuk asks her if she has something to say, calling her Birdie. She starts chirping, asking what he means, and he says she's proving his point. Arin thinks it's a cute nickname. It skips to later and they are at the Eye of the Forest. They are all standing before the labyrinth gate. Dio-kwon picks up the mic and starts rapping. He explains that the audience can watch this match just like the last, but he would like to tell them something about the labyrinth, mostly the content of the game and the evaluation criteria. He explains again that the Eye of the Forest is where it will be held. It's a maze shaped like a forest just as the name implies, and it has a unique environment where it never stops raining. While the monsters are low-leveled, there are many threats, and that it will be a true test of survival. They'll judge everyone based on how well they survive. They'll have their conditions checked. Then after 5 hours, whoever is the closest as to when they win in will have the highest score. Combat is also prohibited. He finally says it's time to begin the game and the door opens. Inside of the Valhalla abandoned warehouse, Lisa and Al get told that the students entered, and were introduced to Alia, who was mentioned before. She puts her hands on their shoulders, saying there's magic blocking them at the main gate, and it has two people who are maintaining it. Al says they'll just kill them first, then they disappear into a purple light that Alia created. We see a monitor get cut off, and Sang-il is surprised as all of the cameras inside the Eye of the Forest are malfunctioning. Chief Lee is surprised too, saying it seems Seuss. He asks a guard if they've called the main gate. He says yes, but nobody is picking up. Sang-il says that the students might run into problems, so all of the teachers should enter. Chief Lee agrees, then we see them all running and they're surprised as they see the main gate collapse. They wonder what's going on, then it cuts inside of the Eye of the Forest. We see the students from Heroes hiding from the rain, and Melissa informs Logan that Yubella doesn't look good. We see her lips are bluish and she says she's alright. Logan warns her that if she gets hypothermia she'll be eliminated. He decides they should build a simple hut to avoid the rain better, and he gets them to pick up materials. He says that he'll level the ground and dig a hole. Then he sees a purple orb appear in front of him. The Samsel group appears from it, and complains about the rain. Al says it's time for Joo-hyuk to die, which makes him cringe when he realizes he isn't saying it to Joo-hyuk. He barks at Alia, and she says that she just teleported to a moderately strong magic source, since she can only find him with that. Logan wonders what the hell is going on, wondering why they need Joo-hyuk, but notices that it's black magic. Then he wonders if they are villains. Lisa tells Al to clean up any witnesses. He says he knows. Logan prepares for a fight, and yells saying this is no place for bastards and goes to attack, but gets scrunked on as Al appears behind him, and stabs him in the back. The blade goes through his chest. Logan turns around surprised, then asks when he got behind him. Al says he doesn't seem to understand, saying to look in front. Then he realizes that there are two Als. He says that's right, and goes for the next attack and stabs him in the front this time, saying that it's called duplication. Logan drops to the floor. I'm sure he'll walk it off. Lisa asks if he's dead, and Al says he'll just let him bleed out. They then hear a scream, and see Bella standing over Logan. Lisa asks Al when he'll stop letting witnesses walk up, and he says he'll handle it. And he throws some shade at Lisa, then rushes at Bella. It cuts at that moment to Joo-hyuk running through the forest, and he wonders where the house is from his quest thing he is. He wonders if there's even a house here since he only sees bushes and trees. Then he spots Melissa, and she's obviously scared, while screaming no over her classmates' bodies. No idea if they are dead, but Lisa asks if this is a comedy skit, since another one appeared. Al then notices that Joo-hyuk is here now too. Lisa says looks like the target came on his own. Joo-hyuk wonders about the target remark, then looks down to see everyone taking naps. Joo-hyuk tells Melissa while he's clapping these side characters that she should try and control everyone's bleeding. He tells us they are still alive, and he wonders why they are being left to bleed out rather than instantly killed. He tells them that they've ruined his mood, so he goes to ask them a question. He asks if they snuck in here. If they did, he'll make it quiet. Al says he clearly doesn't know the situation he's in, since he's stuck in the labyrinth. Since they smashed through the only door here, and broke the drones. Joo-hyuk says the teachers must know then, and Al says they won't be here in time, and it'll take them at least an hour to clean the gateway up. Joo-hyuk says a single hour in this non-stop rain. He has to find the house in an hour. Al says he's not sure what he's talking about, but die, and launches an attack with his duplicate. The Al going for backshots misses and hits the floor, and is surprised. He wonders where he went, and looks up to Joo-hyuk saying they're dead. Then he hits him in the nose with his sheath. This sends Al flying backwards past the other Samsel members. He hits his head on a tree. The others are surprised. Joo-hyuk quickly leaps at them and smacks them both in the back of their heads. They both start to lose consciousness, and join their friend on the floor. Lisa low-key ate shit. Joo-hyuk tells Melissa to use her magic and heal the injured. If she isn't able to handle it, then run west as the Valhalla students are there. She says she'll try her best first. Al then wakes up, and sees the others on the ground, confused about what happened. Joo-hyuk says his colleagues are quite frail. Al grabs his knife, and gets ready to fight. Joo-hyuk says he has to ask one thing before killing him, then asks who their client is. Al asks what kind of assassin would give his client up, and Joo-hyuk says the others he met spat it out instantly. Al starts to plan his next attack, saying that he'll attack him with his duplicate first this time, which Joo-hyuk easily dodges. Al is surprised since there was no presence to be detected. Joo-hyuk calls him a coward, then smacks the duplicate. Al quickly takes the chance to attack, but gets elbowed in the nose. As he's reeling from the hit, Joo-hyuk calls out to him, asking him again if he wants to name his client. Al asks if he thinks he's a joke, and Joo-hyuk says he clearly is, and smacks him, this time sending him really flying, crashing through trees. The teachers finally make it into the forest, to find Melissa and the Valhalla students healing the others. Jack quickly runs to Logan, asking if he's okay, to which he says it's just slightly difficult to move. Jack is relieved that he's okay, and Sang-il asks what happened. Logan explains how he got attacked by villains, and there were a total of 3 attackers. Sang-il wonders if it's Samsel, then asks where they are. Logan points over to the side, and we see the wreckage from Joo-hyuk one-shotting Al, and the others still napping. Well, we see Lisa and Al. Logan informs them our boy defeated them all. Sang-il wonders if Joo-hyuk was this strong. Logan tells them that he only saw him fighting as he was losing consciousness, but it was incredible, and extremely one-sided for Joo-hyuk, and when he fought him in the tournament he didn't even use half of his power. He thought he was the strongest out of the high schoolers, but seems like it was just arrogance. Jack tells Logan to cheer up, since Joo-hyuk is just an anomaly. Sang-il notices that Alia is missing, and they say that Joo-hyuk went to fight her. We then hear our boy say here, and drop her onto the floor saying he tried to find out their goal. Sang-il asks him if he's okay, to which he says he wasn't hurt. Sang-il says alright and that they can hear the details of the academy. Sang-il then tells everyone the teachers will help move the injured to the hospital, and that the Valhalla students will find the White Lotus ones to let them know that the competition is over. At the Valhalla dorm we see Joo-hyuk fresh out of the shower, saying that it was a hard day, and he wonders why there was so much to do. Barky asks if it's because he had to use magic to fight the villains. Joo-hyuk says maybe, since he used a lot of mana, but he was happy with the performance. We see that he somehow made it to the house and got the bead. He pulls it out of his pocket, showing it off. We get a flashback to Alia on the ground, and she's complaining about how her head is hurting. Joo-hyuk tells her to wake up, and she immediately sits up to see him. He asks her what her ability is. He tells her that he's not sure where she hid, but she must be part of Samsel. He explains how the other two were fighters, so she must be a supporter instead. She looks surprised, and he tells her that she must have an assassination ability, asking what it is. She begins to form her bubble from earlier, saying she has no intention to tell him. But he stops it from forming entirely, and she's surprised that he's able to stop it. Joo-hyuk tells her that now he's seen it, he understands, and that her ability is to create space and move within it. But he says that works out well, and he needs her help since he has something to find. If she does well, nothing will happen to her. Turns out that's how he got the bead. Barky says that Joo-hyuk didn't keep his word to Alia. He replies saying that she didn't tell him anything about her comrades or employer, and if she confessed nothing would have happened. Joo-hyuk starts to think about who their client could be, and he pieces together that it must be Rockdale. He starts to think about what he'll do if the Rockdale family pills some shit like this again, but he got the beat anyway, so it's time for what follows. He sees on the status window that it says he must sleep to find his memories. He's confused by how easy it is, and Barky says that if Joo-hyuk finds his memories, he might get some of his too. Since he also got a notification, Joo-hyuk decides it's sleepy time. While he's laying in bed, he is confused since he doesn't think he's lost any of his memories. So he closes his eyes wondering what he'll find, and it cuts back to the Tower of Destruction, and it's right as the tower began to crumble. Right as a piece goes to hit Joo-hyuk on the head, time begins to stop and it zooms out a bit to show Barky on the floor too. And a red shadowy figure appears, saying that they'll take good care of Yono's name, along with the names that Joo-hyuk protected in this world. Then it vanishes and time resumes again, and crushes Joo-hyuk. He quickly opens his eyes, wondering what the hell just happened. He's confused still about the whole memory thing. Then he asks Barky if anything came back to him. Barky says he thinks he was a tiger. And Joo-hyuk says that's enough edibles. Joo-hyuk imagines a cute tiger, and Barky says it wasn't that cute. Joo-hyuk asks him if he remembers what it looked like, and Barky says he doesn't remember specifics. Joo-hyuk is curious if he saw the shadowy figure or not, but decides it's whatever. He asks Barky if he remembers his name, asking if he heard it being called. Barky says he doesn't know. Joo-hyuk thinks about how it seems like Barky only got painful memories, but he doesn't know his name. Then the status window appears. It mentions how there's a secret room in the Grand Palace, and to watch the truth. Joo-hyuk wonders about it, and decides that when he's done training today he'll ask Lilia about it. In the Valhalla gym, we see everyone is training. Seok is curling some heavy-ass weight, and Soyeon calls out to him, asking why he's here, but rather he is confused why she's here. She looks shy, saying that she thinks her reason is similar to his, since she's got a lot of pride, but she is jealous of Joo-hyuk. Seok says that isn't why he is here at all, he just loves going gym. Then he asks her if she's jealous of Joo-hyuk because she lost to Arin. Soyeon says yes, and she begins to recall her fight with Arin. She relentlessly attacked her, even imbuing her blade, and when she slashed at Arin raised her hands, then sliced Soyeon's attack, causing it to split in half. Soyeon was surprised her magic was cut with the blade, so she sent out 3 more strikes. We see them heading towards Arin, and she begins to use her lightning while preparing to unsheath her sword. She does some rapid slashes to counter the attack, and as Soyeon is confused like usual, Arin quickly leaps toward her and slices her, causing her to drop to the floor, which is how she lost. She tells Seok that Arin became much stronger than she was at the entrance ceremony, and she thinks it's due to Joo-hyuk's guidance. So she's been training her magic power and swordsmanship. But Arin is doing weight training, and nobody in her family trained her. So maybe that's why her growth is so explosive. Seok listens to her yap, then says she's better off telling Joo-hyuk that. Soyeon blushes, and realizes that he's right and she has to ask him directly. She approaches him, and calls out to him. He asks what Chirpy wants, and she asks if he's training Arin. She finally musters up the courage to ask him to train her too, but Sankil walks in, asking if he's busy. Joo-hyuk asks him what he needs. Sankil tells him to finish up here and come out, as someone is here to meet him. And they've said this will be the only time they're able to see him for a long time. Joo-hyuk says alright, and Soyeon gets embarrassed since she got interrupted without being able to ask him. She thinks about how embarrassing it was, then she hears Joo-hyuk call her Chirpy. He tells her if she wants to train, then asks Arin about the routine and do it with her. If she does well, he might actually train her. Arin then says she'll teach Chirpy well. Soyeon barks at her. Joo-hyuk begins to follow Sankil, asking who wants to see him. Sankil says there's only one person it could be, and Joo-hyuk has an idea. Then the door is open to reveal Rockdale and Yuri. He looks like he's aged 20 years. Joo-hyuk calls out to him, and Rockdale drops to his knees, begging to be saved. He continues to beg for him to help, and Joo-hyuk asks Sankil what's going on here. Sankil says he surely knows that Rockdale is the one who hired Samsel. Along with his previous assassination order, it was his second time trying to kill Joo-hyuk. And that the media rushed to Sankil to figure out what he knew. They've plastered stories about Samsel and Rockdale all over. Turns out Joo-hyuk leaked it to the press. He asks Sankil why he should forgive Rockdale when the Ventrix will just clean up his mess. Sankil says his family released an official statement, and that they've ordered 66'd him, along with Rockdale's father. And unlike before, the Ventrix family hasn't tried to shut the media up. Joo-hyuk says now he only has jail time left, and asks Rockdale how he's meant to save him. Rockdale says there's still a chance, since Joo-hyuk's testimony is more important than the other evidence. Joo-hyuk ignores him, causing Rockdale to beg him more to tell everyone that nothing happened, but Joo-hyuk says he doesn't want to do that. Rockdale asks if it's because he hasn't apologized yet, then starts to cry and even drool. Gross. Joo-hyuk says he doesn't care for the apology, and Rockdale asks if he wants money. Of course the answer is no. Then Rockdale turns desperate. He turns around to look at Yuri, grabs her arm and asks him if he wants her. We learn she is a direct child of the palace family in England. Joo-hyuk asks him if people are just objects to him. Rockdale says that currently she's his possession, and he tells Ju-hyuk to look at her neck. We see some enchantment table runes showing off that she belongs to him. He tells Ju-hyuk he can give her ownership if he'd like. Sang-il gets angry seeing that she's being sealed like this, since it means she cannot act against her owner, and he begins to wonder who casted it for him. Ju-hyuk says people like him have existed for a long time, people who put taboo spells on others and sell them for profit. Ju-hyuk grabs at the runes and begins to imbue his hand with mana. Then he pulls the runes off her neck, causing her to scream. But we see that they slowly begin to fade away. They are surprised he broke the seal, and Ju-hyuk asks Sang-il if it's alright to punch Rockbill just this once. Sang-il asks if he thinks a teacher would tolerate violence between students, then says it's different when the other person is a suspected criminal. So he'll cover Ju-hyuk, so deck his ass. Ju-hyuk grabs onto his shoulder, then tells him to clench his teeth, and very gently taps him on the nose. And we see him on the floor taking a nap. It cuts to later. As Ju-hyuk is walking away, Barky says he thought they'd kill him this time, since he was so angry about it. Ju-hyuk says that if it were 300 years ago he'd be dead, and among his disciples there was a guy who did something similar to a slave, and that's why he was so worked up. And how he's been in a similar spot before. Barky realizes that Ju-hyuk must have been a slave, but gets interrupted by Yuri calling out to him. She's pretty gassed out. She tells him that earlier she was flustered and couldn't thank him fully. Then bows to show her thanks. Ju-hyuk tells her not to bother thanking him, and that she should just live as she pleases. She starts to tear up and cry. While he continues to walk, she says yes. It cuts to the next day after school. In the school cafe, we see Lilia telling Ju-hyuk that the grand palace he's looking for is in China. She eats her food, saying to be precise it's a labyrinth owned by the White Lotus group. Ju-hyuk asks if he's in the same group from the school competition. She says yes. Ju-hyuk thinks about how it's illegal to enter a labyrinth owned by others. How it's weird that people own them now, when even dogs used to be able to enter them. He could destroy it if he wanted to, but it'd be awkward since it's owned by an academy. He asks her if there's a way in. She says that it's open for the White Lotus students, and she goes to say something else but stops herself from saying it, since she said too much. Then she asks how he can just sit there listening, without giving info in return. He asks her what she's talking about. Then she holds 3 fingers up, saying she just wants 3 pieces of info. Then she'll tell him more. He gets up, telling her to enjoy her coffee. She tells him to wait, and she'll just tell him. He sits back down, and she sighs out of relief. Then tells him it's meant to be a secret, but the Grand Palace will be one of the stages in next semester's world competition. He asks her if all the teachers know about it. She says not yet. And he asks her how she knows about it. She replies that she has a source only she knows. His follow-up question is if it's similar to the school competition. She says yes, and that it's more akin to the Olympics. He thinks about how annoying that will be, and that the second semester is too long away. So he asks her if there's any other way to get there. She's a little surprised and says she's unsure since she has no connection to the White Lotus group. So it'll be difficult to say or not, and she doesn't know if such a thing could happen. But she asks him to help her with something, and to come with her to the World Monster Research Society. That was a mouthful. It then jumps again to North London and they're at the Research Society. Ju-hyuk barks at her, asking why they came all the way here for a day. She tells him that it'll be for the weekend, and Monday since she got permission. He tells her she's abusing her power, then asks what they are doing here. And it jumps again to him standing in front of a monster, while some people watch over it. We get a close-up of the monster's cheeks, then it runs at him, while we learn he's here to just kill monsters for Lilia. He stabs it in the head, causing it to disappear. The researchers tell him to prepare for the next monster, and he's annoyed it isn't over. It cuts to an hour later and he's complaining on the couch. He asks why she said he'd only need to kill 3, but had to do 10. She awkwardly says to no, and he asks her what's with the atmosphere here, since as soon as they enter the building everyone has been yelling at each other, while giving them the cold shoulder. He asks her if she fought with them. She takes a sip of her tea, then says yes, and it's uncomfortable since they've been dead set on how they hunt currently. But now a new paper appeared, contradicting everything they've agreed upon. Ju-hyuk says that the little test he went through was old-fashioned. Lilia tells him that it's just how the association does things. Ju-hyuk asks her why someone else here didn't do the verification. She tells him that they are all boomers, so none of them wanted to do it and have their theories debunked, and that the current monster hunting theory has a ton of nepotism. Ju-hyuk says that's gross, and asks why they need to submit papers constantly. She tells him that a paper without society's recognition is nothing. No matter how close they may be to the association, their focus is the perfect hunting strategy. They'd endure anything to find that. Ju-hyuk says that since he's helped her plenty now, he'd like if she would help him. She says alright, and it was a good decision to come here, since the White Lotus chairwoman is here. And that she usually stops by the association, and she probably came by to watch earlier. Joo-hyuk says since Lilia knows what she looks like, then they should go talk to her while they got the chance. They get a knock on the door, and we hear a woman asking if the student Joo-hyuk is there, and if they can speak to him. Joo-hyuk realizes the plot convenience is kicking in. Then the lady enters the room. She says excuse me, and we see a pretty woman that introduces herself as Sol Yun, the chairwoman of the White Lotus group. Joo-hyuk introduces himself, and then Yun asks him for a favor. She asks him if he can take care of someone. Lilia says since the conversation seems to be getting serious she'll take her leave. Then she exits the room. Joo-hyuk asks her what she needs him to do. She explains how her Sol family were the first to be founded after the era of chaos, which is how they are able to build the White Lotus so successfully. However, there was a genius in the family, but they were closer to that of a natural disaster. At just 13 they stood atop everyone else, trampling their sisters and members of the Sol family. Even the family head was defeated, which led to the person concluding that there was nothing to learn from the outside world, and locked themselves up in the training room in the White Lotus Palace. Joo-hyuk asks if that's who he needs to take care of. Yun says yes. Joo-hyuk says he'll do it, but he's confused why she's asking him and not someone stronger. He even points out how Yun's magic power is quite strong too. Yun tells him he has good eyes. She says that she used magic to hide it, but there are two reasons. The first is that the person fights using solely their physical power. The second is that the person is the same age as Joo-hyuk. After watching the competition she knows he's strong physically, so if the person were to lose to someone their age their pride will be damaged. Which is why she came herself to ask for the favor. Joo-hyuk says he understands, and hopes she's not asking him to do this for free. She says of course not, then goes to ask how much he wants. But he interrupts her saying he doesn't want money, and that there's a place he'd like to go instead. It cuts to a little after and they are in China now, in front of the White Lotus Group's building. Joo-hyuk tells her he didn't expect to do this the day he agreed to it. Yun says that he said he was free till Monday, so the quicker the better. He agrees. Then she asks him if the place he needs to enter is the Great Palace. He says yes. Then she tells him that it won't be a difficult request, but they should enter first. As they walk in, some of the students look surprised to see her walking. Then they enter a room, and he tells her he's curious about something. Yun asks what it is, and he tells her it didn't feel like she paid attention to the competition. But she wants him to deal with this person. She says she understands what he's talking about, but there are a lot of people who foolishly tried to fight this person, only to realize the limit to their talents. Both students and teacher. That's why Yun's top goal currently is to rid this person of their arrogance. Then Yun will lead the White Lotus group to the top. Joo-hyuk says he gets it. She then tells him that everything is here, and that when he steps onto this magical seal he'll be transported to the Soul training room. He says alright then steps on it, then asks Yun what the person's name is. Yun says that the person's name is Yanlong. She looks like a tiger. Lang asks Joo-hyuk who he is, asking if he was sent by the family to get her to leave. She says she won't, so get lost. Joo-hyuk calls her out for being rude to someone they just met, and leaps at her saying she must be crazy. He punches at her, but she catches his fist. This surprises him, then she hits him back with an aura-imbued palm strike. She calls him an idiot, asking if he'll continue to underestimate his opponent, then mocks him for his punch. He tells her they should introduce themselves. She's surprised he's not injured. Then he grabs her wrist, and rears his fist back for another punch. She puts her hand up to block the hit, and he hits her forearm causing her to feel pain. She quickly distances herself from him. Asking who he is, he tells her that he's a 17-year-old high schooler who underestimated his opponent. She decides to keep her distance and look for a counterattack. He doesn't give her the chance and closes the gap. Then readies another punch, hitting her directly in the stomach. He begins to have fun, saying she realized that dodging wasn't possible, so she moved backwards with the blow to reduce the impact. He says she isn't bad, and he felt it when he let her hit him. Even his students back in the day didn't have that level of mobility. Lang starts to think about how someone her age is on the same level as her. She starts to smile out of excitement. Since he's so strong it means she can go all out. He decides that since she still has some pride, he'll knock her down a bit. We see that they are being watched on a screen. It's Yun that is watching. Her secretary calls out to her, and says he knows it's presumptuous, but he wonders if Joo-hyuk will be okay, since he doesn't think that a student from another school could do anything to the White Lotus. He says that he's currently being overwhelmed, asking if he can really defeat Lang, and that he knows it is rude, but didn't Yun also lose to Lang? Of course that was without using magic power, and only physical. Yun says that's right, she lost to Lang once and even if she used magic there's no guarantee she would have won, since the difference back then between their magic power was paper thin. He asks what she means, and Yun says since it was a few years ago. Lang has probably gotten even stronger both physically and mentally. The secretary says that surely makes it more risky, right? Since Joo-hyuk couldn't come close to beating him, Yun says who knows. He defeated Samsel as a student, and also came first in the competition right, so he surely won't go down easily, it doesn't matter if he loses. It goes back to the actual fight, and we see her readying herself, and begins to rush in to prepare an attack. Joo-hyuk dodges it, but Lang quickly follows up with a knee attack. She feels it come into contact with something, and she goes to think that she's got him, but notices something wrong and screams while grabbing her knee. She asks him if he's got a rock as a head, and he says to no. Her knee came so suddenly he just headbutted it. So it means that his forehead is harder than her kneecap. Lang thinks about how even if she bombards him with attacks, he just blocks them all. She cannot see a path, and it hurts her pride, but his physical strength is greater than hers. Then she asks him if he's been fighting without magic. He tells her yes, saying that's what she prefers, right? She says to drop that, as she's going to unleash everything now. He sees her gathering magic, saying that since she's getting riled up, it's time to break her pride, and he begins to unleash his own magic power. Which scares her since there's so much, she's in doubt that it's a high schooler's power, and says there's no point in tricks anymore, then pushes off the floor, dashing toward him, deciding to end it all in one hit. She begins to accumulate her magic into her fist, and punches straight at his face. As she feels it come into contact with his face, she believes she won like last time, but is surprised to see him matrix dodge her fist. He tells her he's had enough fun for now, and it's time to end it, then hits her straight in the stomach again, but this time with magic. She starts to lose consciousness, and calls him a monster as she falls over. Joo-hyuk exits, and tells Yun it's as requested, and he's brought Lang out after bodying her. Yun is in disbelief he managed to beat her, then asks if he's hurt anywhere. He says he's fine, but she might not be. Yun asks him how difficult it was. He says she was strong, but was disappointed due to the skill gap. Then drops her onto the floor. Lang wakes up from the fall and sees Yun standing before her, and angrily says her name. Yun says it's been a while, and they'll talk later. She tells Joo-hyuk it's time to discuss his payment, and that she can let him enter right now. He tells her good, and he'd like to go immediately. As they walk away Lang watches, and the secretary tells her they should get her treated. Lang asks him what the name is of the guy who bodied her. Then she hears Joo-hyuk's name, even though he told her I guess she ignored him. She says he's one of the strongest people, then thinks about fighting him again. It cuts to an edgelord hearing her say this, then back to Joo-hyuk, wondering if he's really in a maze, as he sees night figures. Yun informed him that the Grand Palace is a unique maze that looks just like a castle, and explains to him that he needs to look out for monsters called living armor, and other than that there will be no difficulty exploring. He asks how long he can stay there, and she tells him around 5 hours. He starts to stretch, since he's under a time constraint, then gets swarmed by living armors. It jumps to a bit later, and we see a living armor going to attack him, and he quickly slices it in half, and then it just falls into multiple pieces. He says that should do it, and we see that he's already defeated the rest. Then he wonders where the office is, saying he's searched more than 20 rooms. He wonders if he's finally made it there, then Barky tells him to turn to his right, and tells him that door most likely has an office. Joo-hyuk enters it, and sees a portrait off some dude, and says it's definitely an office. Then he wonders if it's Elifree's, since it could be someone else's. Barky says it's definitely the right one, and a look under the portrait and has Elifree's name there. He asks Barky how he read that, since the language is weird. Barky says he doesn't know either. Joo-hyuk says he just needs to search for the secret room, but it'll take a while to sit there and look individually. So he just starts smashing everything in sight. He then sees something, and wonders if it's the giant metal hatch in the floor. Barky says definitely not. Joo-hyuk goes down, and says he can't see anything so this'll be a bit annoying. The status window updates, saying the conditions have been met. Then Joo-hyuk eyes adjust, and he sees a woman sitting down. So he asks her where they are and who she is. The woman says it's nice to meet him, and she'll answer the questions. He sits down, and she says that she is a guide. Then she says it's not her real name, which wasn't obvious apparently. She says her name was taken away, and Ju-hyuk recalls what the shadow figure said to him. Then double checks that her name was yoinked. He asks her what that truly means, asking how you can steal a name. She says that names hold power, and all creatures build their lives upon their names, and blah blah everything they do in life contributes to their names. So a name that's gotten many achievements means they have great power. And that shadowy figure steals names so they can absorb the power they contain. Ju-hyuk asks what happens to the person who had their name stolen. She says that he's sure he's familiar with it. And that they become constellations. Which surprises him. If you've watched till the end, comment, coffee, to let me know. Subscribe.